Well, hi folks, I've been asked to sit down and do a Q&A session as a bonus for our artistic course, and I'm here this morning. Obviously we're in our living room, and we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A session on the practicalities of working from home. Well, I got started more or less working from home full time. It was pretty much just after I left, with the youth group and things. And I'd made the decision, gosh, I think in January 2016, something like that. I made the decision that I wanted out. It had just become a really difficult and political thing and problem for me, and I just got to the point where I was like, I need to go and do something else, and I felt that it was the right time to do it. But of course, then you've got the thing in your head of what do I actually do, and obviously I've been building up Art from the Heart for. I started painting when I was 17. That's really when it all started. And it more or less just took on a life of its own, which was phenomenal. Facebook really gave us a massive platform to which we could, work and share all our artistic skills and stuff. But it wasn't until much later that, sorry. Good morning, Art from the Heart. How can I help?
Hello there, it's James calling from the Life Insurance Review team.
Sorry about that. But yeah, it wasn't until, I think like August that I actually left, in terms of, youth work and things. And that was a scary thing, because it was, it's a case of you are now putting all your eggs in one basket. You're putting all your eggs in this big, dream and vision that you've got. And as I was saying, sorry, before we had to break there, it was a case of, oh my goodness, we're actually doing this. And I had, probably several major meltdowns, because it's a really scary thing when you say, well, we're going to go and run business full time, but then it's going to work. You've got a family to feed, you've got, your, almost like your reputation, online as well, and it's, it was a lot of things that that were really, really scary. And, from that point of view, even up until end of 2017, till maybe November 2017, when Facebook were changing their algorithms and how you could actually promote and how you could operate on there, it was a really frightening thing when all of a sudden you go from doing 150 commissioned paintings a year approximately to none. 2018 alone, I haven't touched, up until literally 2 days ago, I haven't touched any commissioned work or anything. And it's been nice in some ways, but it meant that we had to build the art school. So you've got to be able to be diverse. You've also got to be able to really adapt and mold. And I know you guys have heard me use this analogy before. You in terms of a business life, you almost want to be like a rat, because a rat will survive no matter what its environment is. When the dinosaurs were killed out, how many hundreds of millions of years ago, the only things that survived were these little rat-looking creatures, and it gave chance for a new breed to obviously evolve and everything else. But it's a scary thing, when you take that step and say, right, I'm no longer going to have a part-time job. I'm doing this full time, and it is, it's frightening. We took a major drop in income initially, And then it was a case of, okay, now the commissions are building up, but we actually would spend about £8,000 a year on staff, on training, on canvas, on paint, on this, on that, on the other, which has a massive cut in your profits and everything. Now with the teaching, we'll probably spend, just on teaching and paint and materials alone for that, maybe about £2,000 a year. So it's a massive, it's a massive drop as compared to what it was. Practical things of working from home. Well, one of the things that I always maintain when people ask me that question, I always maintain that you should have an environment that is separate from your house, if that makes sense. So for example, I teach through in a kitchen. It's a good big space. We've got a couple of tables up and through there, and I was always very clear about that I didn't want to have students in the living room or really anywhere else in the house, because it is a very personal space. If the law wasn't what it was, I would just basically stick them outside, and and in the summer in Scotland you can do that, but in the winter it's freezing. So you need a practical environment. When my wife leaves for work at 9 AM in the morning, or whatever time she goes, one of my first things usually is to not be sitting in here, but to go through into the studio or into the kitchen, and basically where I've got everything set up, and whether I'm filming, whether I'm writing, whether I'm painting, whatever it may be, or recording or narration or whatever, I'm very, very clear in that I want to do it from home, but I want to make sure that my environment is different to where I'm living. It's a hard balance, because there's times when I'm sitting here late at night and I'm busy writing or recording or narrating, as I say, and here has much better acoustics and less echo because it's a smaller room than through in the kitchen. So those are some practical, things. Always try and get a separator between where you're working and where your living space is. It's really important. Yeah. I prefer working for myself, if I'm being honest. I prefer being my own boss, because what I found a lot of the time was, and I don't know whether or not it's me, I don't know if it's the way that I think or the way that I operate, but the majority of the time, there's maybe only 2 jobs that I've had. One was a cleaner and in a bakehouse, and we had a great time because there was a lot of like-minded people there, and it was a really, really good environment. The other one was my initial time in youth work, and that was more as a volunteer. But aside from that, I found that a lot of my my bosses, to be fair, you had, when I was working at Colour Range, you had husband, or now husband and wife, the husband was more like a schizophrenic. And I remember stories, of him ripping a banister off the wall and things because he got angry, and there'd be fights and there'd be rows all the time in the office environment. One of the girls that'd be in there was very flirtatious, and she was lovely, don't get me wrong, she was lovely. But again, because I was like 19 and I didn't have a clue about a lot of things, I had great wisdom for that time and for my age, but I didn't have a clue in terms of a lot of the, stupidness that goes on at work. My first job, I ended up actually having a nervous breakdown because I couldn't cope with the work environment that I was being presented with. It was a really rough environment. People in there would be swearing all the time, and you would, if you'd done something wrong, you were told off, and you get told off a lot. even if you hadn't done something wrong, even if it was somebody else's fault, you would get told off. You were made to work in all environments and all things, and I wasn't doing what I was originally hired for. I was originally hired for marketing. And because you had the boss literally sitting within ear's reach of me, you know, constantly asking questions, it's like, oh, this is really uncomfortable, can you just give me my own office and, you know, kind of, you know, leave me alone, kind of thing. But it was a really uncomfortable, you know, really uncomfortable thing, a really uncomfortable time. I often find that a lot of people that want to bring in marketers, they don't understand that, for example, if you've got folks that you're trying to market to in a home environment, you know, you can't bring them in 9 to 5, because a lot of people that are residential and living at home, they're not going to be 9 to 5. So, you know, my old boss said, well, you know, I'm not bothered when you do your hours as long as you do them, but you got to come in at these times. And it just it didn't make sense with a lot of the things that he was saying. So yeah, I mean, I got quite ill, you know, from that. And then, as I say, other things in youth work, I got tired of the politics and nonsense that went on there a lot. You know, it got to the point there was some really stupid stuff, you know, that went on. Like, can you provide us all your lesson plans for 6 months in advance, or for the next session? And, you know, that's just not the way that I work. You know, I tend to feel as to where a person is and where a youth group is, rather than I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you that, and you have to listen. I'm going to force you to listen. Because all that does is really just push people away, and you know, and it does. It makes it really, really difficult. You know, but then you've got the other. You know, the flip side of that is, you know, you've no guaranteed money. You have to find all your clientele yourself. You can be more stressed. You work a lot more, but you work a lot more doing something you enjoy. So there are a lot of, you know, pros and cons for both. You know, if you get sick, for example, you know, it's a much longer process to actually get sick pay. You know, in terms of, you know, government and stuff. So as I said, there's a lot of pros and cons, but I don't miss the crap that went on all the time in working for other people. You know, and I know a number of people that have gone self-employed that say the exact same thing. You know, some of them were nurses, and they said, you know, the politics and the backstabbing and the bitchiness and everything else that was there, it just wasn't worth it, and it's not good for your health. It's not good for your health to have that. So, you know, that for me was a really, really good thing in terms of, you know, leaving and running business full time. Pros and cons of working for yourself. Sometimes it can be very lonely. Like, if you are naturally an extrovert, I would encourage people to find a position that they feel naturally comfortable with. Like, you wouldn't probably want to do my kind of position, because these days I'm more introverted. I never used to be, but these days I am more introverted. You know, I feel that, you know, if I'm teaching Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's enough contact with people for me in a week. You know, and you know, don't get me wrong, I mean, we've had some people that have come, studied with me, and I literally feel are lifelong friends. They may feel something different, but I feel that they're lifelong friends. But, you know, it's one of the things I do like more of my own time and still be able to do my own projects. The art school came as a form of necessity. You know, it was never ever designed to be anything, you know, other than a few DVDs here and there, maybe online teaching. And then it, you know, because of Facebook, you know, dicking around and changing everything, basically it became this massive, you know, or it feels massive, you know, art school that it's pretty damn cool. All in the span of about a year or something. And it's a really exciting thing. But to go back to your question about the pros and cons, again, as I said, a few minutes ago, the pros of working for someone else is you tend only to have, ideally, one or two jobs to do. In a smaller organisation, you will do a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs that you won't have a clue of what you're doing, like plumbing, like building, like, shifting stock, like, greeting customers and whatever else. If you're brought in for marketing and you're an introvert, then, that's sometimes just bad planning on the business side. As I say, guaranteed money, you've got holidays, 28 days a year holiday, if you get sick, you get statutory sick pay, there is a degree of flexibility that's there. You work 9 to 5 usually, or whatever part-time job. But the cons behind that is the amount of garbage you've got to put up with to get your, couple of hundred a week. Normally it was about $250. They say that the average now is about £533 a week. Now I think that's actually been taken from a London basis, because I don't know too many people up here that are making £2,000 a month. The pros for work, or the cons for working from home is, you never know your income, you never know, what's going to happen from one day to the next. It's a little bit chaotic, it's a little bit all over the place, you've got to work more hours, you probably will be more stressed, depending what you do and what level of business you want to go to. It's up to you to think of the new ideas, it's up to you to take it in a new direction, to promote, to market, to hire staff, to hire and fire. You are your own boss. I've seen this build up now for the last 13 years. And it's been incredible, to see where it started from as, a guy from Huddersfield painting in his attic, after watching Bob Ross, to now someone who runs an art school, has been taught by some of the best in the world, is known, in one form or another, by a lot of people all over the world. That's a pretty darn cool thing, and that wasn't by my design, it happened. That I would meet such and such a person, this would happen, that would happen, and that's how it would really, build. The pros, obviously, you are your own boss, you don't have to deal with a lot of the crap that the work environment has. However, if you are selling to customers, the chances are you are going to have to deal with nonsense, and I'm going to keep it PC and age appropriate, because I know we may have a young audience that watch this as well. But you got to deal with a lot of garbage from people. In the past we've had people threatening us, people threatening our lives. Other things. In the early days, I actually had myself death threats. People saying, "I'm going to get you, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to kill you." There was sometimes mail that would come through our door. The first place that I lived in the high street, basically when I was doing music, and this was during the day, wasn't particularly loud or anything like that, but the guy basically, and it looked like it was written in blood, on a piece of paper, and it was just jabbed into my door, the music stopped, so you're out. And it gives you a really sobering wake-up call. A lot of people think that this art business is, really, it's wonderful, you're doing what you love and everything else, but people are very fickle. One day they will love you, the next day they'll hate you. And it's just not good. But on the plus side of it, that's once in a blue moon. We had that more when we were starting out. These days, it's good the majority of the time. But we've had to work through a lot of crap. And it doesn't matter what line of work you go into. those are some of the things that you've got to deal with. You know, you may have to deal with a boss being a bully. I've had that. You may have to deal with, you know, volunteers that don't actually want to do very much. I've had that. You may have to deal with kids that basically, you know, want you to be like their big brother, and you're having to almost turn them away. You know, you may have to deal with kids that haven't got a really good positive role model and, you know, want to be closer to you. You may have to deal, if you're a youth worker, with kids falling in love with you. You know, or, you know, God forbid, and this has happened because we've seen it not too far from here, that a youth worker and a youth who was, you know, 15, 16 or whatever they were, they had become very close. You know, not in a physical, sexual nature, but again, it's unbelievably easy when you're working with folks to develop an emotional attachment both ways. So all these things are things you've got to deal with and you've got to work through. My advice to anybody is to make sure you've got really good support, you know, in your chosen field or whatever it is. I've got my business coach, I've got my wife, I've got, you know, 4 or 5 other people that I would talk to and get advice from who are much older than I am, that can say, you know, just take a breath, you know, relax, this will phase itself out, or, you know, you'll get through this, or whatever. But you've got to be self-motivated as well, you know, when you're running your own business. Now, I am, as my wife would say, painfully disciplined, you know, and I've had that from years, from bodybuilding and from wrestling and all the other things that I've done over the years. You know, so I don't have a problem. I don't need someone else to motivate me usually. There are times, you know, throughout the year when you do lose a bit of steam, but you keep going, you know, and it's like, yes, come on. You know, we're building up the art class. I mean, we see between 35 and 40 people a week, you know, just from our art class, and that's, you know, that's big numbers. You know, so there are a lot of things that go on. I would love it to be much bigger, and I'd love to essentially be taking over, you know, and doing that. But be prepared for a lot of ups and downs and ins and outs and winding and bending and all over the place, and almost to do and be maybe not what you expected. You know, it is a very different role. It's a very different role model and everything. So there are a lot of things out there. Any final advice I'd want to give people? If you're going to go self-employed, whether it be art, whether it be music, whether it be teaching or whatever it may be, nothing can prepare you for what you will experience. It doesn't matter how much teaching, how much theory, how much you think you know, until you get there and you've had a student walk out on you, you've had others shout and bawl, you've had, you know, people having breakdowns, you've experienced life with people, nothing can prepare you for that. Nothing can prepare you for when you put a product out there that you think is phenomenal and it flops, it falls right on its ass. Nothing can prepare you, sorry, I apologise, but nothing can prepare you for when you put a product out there that you think, this might be alright, we'll just test the market and see, and it succeeds. And it succeeds in a humongous way. Nothing can prepare you for the highs and the lows and the stress and the ups and the downs and the uncertainties and the faith that's required to do business as a small business owner. Nothing can prepare you for when you start your art school and people flock to it and it's like, oh my word, this is amazing. You know, nothing can prepare you for the stuff that you'll have to deal with on Facebook. So the only thing that I can suggest is, you know, do it. Get as much experience in doing this as you can and stick it out, because it is a great business. It's a wonderful business to be part of. You'll meet some awesome people, you have some amazing conversations, but be prepared, it is difficult and you've got to continue on no matter what happens. You know, no matter what happens, no matter what's put out there, you've got to continue on, and you've got to develop things. So yeah, so I hope that's been helpful for you guys, and I appreciate you taking the time out to come down today and ask the questions. And folks, thank you very much for watching, and I hope it's been helpful for you too. Getting this free bonus, what was it, practical working or practical working advice from working from home, and I hope it's helped. Thanks guys, take care. Yeah, well sometimes it is a case of literally just sitting down and, as you guys have done, just sticking a camera on and just asking questions, because I find that things happen more naturally on camera, certainly when it's not scripted, and you can ask you can ask the questions and you'll get an answer that's literally from the top of my head. I appreciate you guys coming down, and thank you very much.